Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and this is my wrap-up for June. As always, I'm starting with my small booktuber shoutouts where I recommend 3 YouTubers with under 500 subscribers that you should definitely go and subscribe to if you haven't already. All of these will be linked in the description box. The first channel is someone who is just about to hit 500, so I want to recommend her before it gets too late, and that is Kat from Brews and Reviews. She does great videos, mostly about young adult literature, but also some other genres, and has recently been doing some vlogging too, which I've been enjoying very much. Not just, but partly because she got an adorable new kitten. Other than that, she does great wrap-ups, reviews, and she participates in a lot of readathons. The next recommendation is someone I have been watching ever since I joined BookTube, and that is Laura from Paperback Winter. She reads very similar genres to me, so mostly adult literature, contemporary, historical, but also some sci-fi and things like that. She has a really wonderful, relaxed and fun way of talking about books, and I just really enjoy watching her. She does reviews and wrap-ups, some tags, but she also has some really original videos, like one recent discussion about trying out some new genres. And the last channel I want to recommend is Nashwa Reads. She does very chatty kind of discussions, reviews and tags, very kind of natural, unedited style, and she's just very funny and entertaining. Her channel are the sort of videos you enjoy watching even if you've never heard of any of the books. I particularly enjoy her tags, so go and check those out. This is it for the shoutouts, so let's get to the wrap-up. I read 4 books in June and they averaged at 3.5 stars. The first book I read is The Two Princesses of Burma by Gail, Carson, Levine. This is a children's fantasy novel about Princess Addie who lives in her father's castle in a time of monsters and plague. When her sister falls ill, Addie has to leave the castle for the first time and go on an adventure out to save her. She encounters dragons and ogres and all sorts of other dangers that she has to fight, and the story is about her finding her own strength and courage in her mission. This is the first time I've read a proper fantasy novel that is set in a fantasy world with magic and dragons and fairies and all of these other things. I liked the world, I liked the magic, I liked the characters, and I liked the story. But I only gave this book 3 stars. I mean, I say only 3 stars means I did enjoy the book. The reasons why I did enjoy the book, but I couldn't get completely lost in it, was that everything felt slightly underdeveloped in it, which is entirely because it's a children's novel, you know, it's a short book. And for that, it does a really good job. I just like getting lost in a book, and this one felt like I had to fill too many of the gaps in myself. I know that I would have absolutely loved this if I'd read it as a child, and I did enjoy it as an adult too. The second book I read was Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This was my first Agatha Christie novel, and I picked it up mainly because I recognised the title and I watched that Doctor Who episode that was vaguely based on it. The setup of the story is pretty much in the title, so I'm going to spare you the summary for this. It was not what I had expected. I found it quite difficult to get through the book since it was less of a story and more of a puzzle, like a riddle that needed to be solved by the reader along with Poirot the detective. And while I got some of the sort of minor mysteries and secrets that were hidden by the passengers on the train, I was nowhere near guessing the main murder mystery. And that's fine. I'm not saying that I can only enjoy a crime novel if I guess the murderer, but I felt like the story and the characters got lost in the puzzle. And after a while, I just got a bit bored of reading it because I don't enjoy solving these mysteries. I'm not very good at it. And since that took up the entire book, so there just wasn't enough space for story or character development, which is the things that I enjoy most about a book. Also, the solution of the case I found very ridiculous and silly and not very believable, so I didn't enjoy that either. Saying that, I thought within the space of a very short book, Agatha Christie built up some very good characters that I enjoyed reading about. So overall, I did like the book. It took some effort for me to get through it, but I gave it 3 stars. It intrigued me and it made me want to read more of Agatha Christie's novel. The third book I read in June was... where is it? Was I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. This is a dystopian novel from 1954 and it follows our main character Robert Neville, who might well be the last survivor of a zombie vampire apocalypse. He spends his nights getting drunk on whiskey while barricaded in his house as the zombie vampires try and break in and get to his blood. During the day, he goes out to gather supplies and kill the sleeping vampires. This is a really short book. It's under 200 pages and I really enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 stars. I have not seen the film adaptation, so I really can't draw any comparisons to that. But the book was just really good, really entertaining. The style is very modern and it reads well. The world is well created. And although it is full of what we now consider zombie apocalypse tropes, you have to remember that this was the book that created a lot of these tropes. It's dark and scary in parts, it's gory and violent sometimes, but it also has really emotional and introspective passages. There's one part where the main character tries to befriend a stray dog, for example, and it's the only living creature that he's seen in years. And he tries so hard to gain the trust of this dog, only for it to become infected in the end and die. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Anyway, it's a quick read and a very good book, and I recommend you read it. And the last book I finished in June was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, which I also gave 4 stars to. This was my audiobook pick for the month, and it was narrated by Morven Christie. The novel came out a few years ago, I believe in 2014, and it's based on real historical events. It's set in early 19th century Iceland, and the main character, called Agnes, is sentenced to death for the murder of 2 men. Before her execution, she is sent to live on a local farm for a few months. While she's there, she gets to know the farmer's family and the young priest who's sent to her to prepare her for her death. This book has my name written all over it. It's so slow moving, there's barely any plot, but there is a lot of reflection and a lot of flashbacks and things like that. We spend a long time getting to know all of the characters and their inner workings. It works with sort of multiple perspectives. And the setting is 1830s Iceland. What's not to like? It is a beautiful book. But the one thing that bothered me about it and that took me out of it quite frequently was the writing style, which for the most part is really beautiful, but it relies a little bit too much on their use of similes to the point where it gets a little bit silly. I felt as empty as a milk jug after the milk has run out. Her heart was as light as the feathery wings of a swan. Your eyes are like piss holes in the snow. Other than that, it really was a good book, and I recommend you read it if the subject matter interests you at all, and if you don't mind a very slow-paced and character-heavy historical novel. This was all the books I read in June. So now for my curated bookshelf tally. Out of the 4 books I read, 1 was borrowed, so I'm going to return that to its owner. 1 was a 3-star rated book, so I'm going to give that away to a friend who's interested in reading it. This one is the only book I'm actually going to keep because I rated it 4 stars and I know I want to read it again at some point. And the last book was an audiobook. And just before I go, here is my non-book favourite of the month. It's been ridiculously hot here in the UK, and I know I feel like I'm complaining about the weather every second video, but maybe I'm turning British, I don't know. Anyway, my non-book favourite is my homemade cold brewed iced tea. And this is how you make it. Fill a jug with cold water, Add tea bags. I use about 5 for 1 litre of water. Leave it in the fridge for at least 5 hours or overnight. And then when the tea is ready, make a simple syrup by heating up 1 part water and 1 part sugar in a saucepan until the sugar is completely dissolved. Use the syrup to sweeten the tea to your liking and add some lemon juice and ice. I use bottled lemon juice because it's cheaper and more convenient, but if you want to squeeze lemons, feel free. Enjoy! And thank you for watching. Bye! Close your eyes and I'll kiss you tomorrow.